MAGA parents who thought that this election meant that they could become grandparents are going to be in their find out season for real. Let's jump into this Am I the A-hole post. This woman says, Am I the a-hole for telling my mom she'll never have grandkids because of how she voted? Geez, this is going to make for a very interesting holiday season. I really do think that this holiday season is going to be a cluster F of major proportions. Okay, to the post. She says, Am I the a-hole for telling my mom she'll never have grandkids because of how she voted? She says, Important info. My parents and I, who's an only child, live in a state with very restrictive reproductive laws. Okay, so she's 30. Her husband is 33. She says, In the summer of 2023, I came off birth control because of some pretty bad side effects. My spouse and I were always ambivalent about kids. We figured if it happened, it happened. If not, parenthood just wasn't meant for us. Fast forward to the holidays of 2023. While visiting my in-laws out of state, I was rushed to the ER bleeding out internally with what turned out to be a ruptured ectopic pregnancy. I underwent emergency surgery where they stopped the bleeding, but I did lose my right fallopian tube. After this, I went back on birth control and had my doc do a full workup before my spouse and I decided the next steps. The workup revealed a large, benign tumor on my remaining tube, as well as significant uterine fibroids. I was told that any pregnancy I had would be high risk and that carrying to term was not as likely, but also not impossible. Given the diagnosis and that my state has now caused the need for a legal team's input before providing emergency abortions in the case of a mother's health being in jeopardy, I decided to move forward with the removal of my uterus and remaining tube instead of risking death for a second time. The surgery occurred the day after the election, and I'm recovering well physically, still working on the emotional side. My mom, who really fell down the MAGA pipeline in the last 2 years, called me a few days ago for our monthly catch up. I had not told her or anyone besides my best friend and spouse about the procedure because I wanted to come to terms with my decision before having to explain it to others. She went off on a long rant about how the new government will be great for families for when she becomes a grandma and that a national abortion ban would save so many lives of unborn babies. I completely lost it and screamed at her that she would never become a grandma, and it's because of how she and those like her voted. I told her I had to have everything removed so I couldn't become pregnant and actually die this time. Hung up after that and had a breakdown. My dad, who is not MAGA, called me a few days ago to let me know he was sorry that I had to make this decision and that he hoped I healed, but that I couldn't talk to my mom like that and that I need to apologize. Personally, I don't want to apologize for what I said. I will apologize for how I said it, but I really don't think that I'm that much of an a-hole at the end of the day. So, am I the a-hole? You are absolutely not the a-hole because you're right. Where we are in this political climate doesn't give a damn about women. They want women to be on the brink of death, like this close. You're on the brink of death. And it's like, cool. Now you can perform emergency care. You have states that have gone to the Supreme Court and won the right to allow a woman to die. Idaho and Texas, I'm looking at you. You have these states that are basically making women walk around with dead, unviable fetuses in their bodies simply because they will not take them out. And the current climate makes it so that, like, if you're on the fence, you're going to get off that fence and then close down shop completely. And I love that for them. I love these people who are MAGAs really seeing their find out season. And I love that America, these forced birthers are going to see their birth rates drop. And when those numbers come out in April or May, when all the numbers start to get compiled, I will be right there watching because this birth rate needs to plummet to hell. I'm on team. Let the birth rate plummet to hell. Emergency Twist says, I just want to say, as someone who also had to have an unwanted hysterectomy, that I'm sorry for what you've lost. It gets easier in time. Alone and Scared says, thank you. Forward Row says, not the a-hole. I'm wishing you can feel the love from perfect strangers. May you heal and find some sort of peace within yourself. Best of luck going forward, whatever you decide regarding your parents. Rhubarb Goldberg says, I'm child free, which I thought was by choice, but I found out my uterus had been ratchet for the last decade it's spent in my body. As someone who spent my 30s bleeding out for 10 out of every 24 days because of a fibroid, I think your long term health is grateful for the compassionate choice you made now. I don't know how to word it other than to say I think you may have saved yourself a lot of unpleasant struggle. Being so weak you pass out if you stand up too quickly is no way to live. So many women in our era are not having babies. We're in great company. You still have the option to foster or adopt, and there are fur babies too. I'm sorry the choice was removed from your control. That's always frustrating, especially when it's our bodies. I hope you find peace and have a speedy physical recovery too. Not the a-hole. I would not apologize to my mom either. By the way, my mom also voted for Trump. She lives in Florida. So now I keep trolling her about the NOAA getting defunded. I also asked her if she was going to bid on any national parks when they go up for sale. Highly recommend trolling of Trump parents. Reason don't work, get your giggles or ignore it entirely. Now I got to look up what NOAA is. I'll do that right after Blue 1564. This person says, I went through the same thing. I had always been on the fence about kids, figured it would happen eventually. If not, then oh well. But it turns out I had a mass, which was first diagnosed as a fibroid, but later turned out to be cancer in my uterus. Had to get an emergency hysterectomy done 2 months ago. The no bleeding anymore is really nice, but I still really don't know how I feel about the fact that the choice was taken completely away from me. I thought I would be completely fine, but it actually made me question a lot and reevaluate my life, and not in a good way. It sucks. Me being curious as to why someone is happy that the NOAA got defunded. It stands for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Is located at Florida International University in Miami. The National Hurricane Center issues forecast warnings and watches for tropical weather. Apparently, also is a grant program, and it looks like it was a bipartisan infrastructure law, and it provides nearly $3 billion for NOAA to take over action over 5 years in areas such as habitat restoration, coastal resilience, and weather forecasting. Oh, and Florida got 29.1 million of that funding. Okay, so I can see why she is being petty to her mom. I can see that this is going to be a very interesting time to live in, and trolling seems to be the best way to handle things. Uh, the GOP, many in the Republican Party, they don't seem to believe in climate change. So why would they renew these initiatives, especially since climate change isn't really happening, even though these storms are coming strong and wiping out houses and all that kind of stuff? Anyways, like I said, I was just curious as to what that was. Let me know what you think about all of this. I do believe that this country, older parents, they're in for a real treat this year, and then going forward. It's going to be a cluster F of major proportions. May the birth rate plummet to hell. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.